our hormones. So we'll talk about different foods that you can incorporate and obviously which ones we want to try to avoid. But what you will come to realize is, a lot of these recommendations, a lot of these suggestions, and the foods that we need to focus on are not really all that different from what we're currently focusing on to change our body composition. So, the first food that we want to make sure to eat is healthy fats, especially as females. We need lots of omega-3 fatty acids, which are a nutrient that comes from avocados, nuts, seeds, olive oils, and fatty fish. So the reason that females so specifically need a higher amount of omega-3 fatty acids is because it helps promote our hormone production. And they can also be found in coconut oil and MCT oil. If you've never heard of MCT oil, you can actually buy this in a liquid form, like just looks like a little oil, in a dropper. And a really easy way to get this into your diet is just adding it to your coffee. And it also helps balance out the acidity of your coffee. So I know that all of you guys don't drink coffee first thing in the morning. We have water and breakfast first. But on the rare occasion that you do have coffee, if you ever have it first thing, you really need to cut it with something because the acidity and the caffeine is just so harsh on our stomach and also our system in general. MCT oil, or even you could do this with coconut oil, is a really, really great option. And I always put cream in my coffee. Side note, I think that regular whole milk cream or half and half is probably the best option for coffee, just because it's natural and doesn't have all the additional sugars and additives and good stuff like that. But anyways, I digress. So second of all, prioritize protein. This is not new to you guys. Because you are in this program, we are obviously prioritizing protein for more than our hormones, but especially when it comes to hormones, we do need to prioritize protein to maintain stable blood sugar. So chicken, beef, turkey, fish, plant-based proteins. The only thing that I will say with the plant-based proteins, none of you guys are vegetarian, but Caitlin, I know that you're not a big meat eater. Sometimes the plant-based protein options like Impossible Burgers or the fake chicken nuggets, they have higher protein content, but they're also hyper processed. So they tend to be actually not so great for you. And if you're incorporating that on a daily, it tends to have an adverse effect as opposed to actually a beneficial effect. So if you're going to go plant-based proteins, definitely try to lean into beans, lentils, quinoa, chickpeas, and some vegetables. Broccoli is pretty high in protein. Okay, and then fiber. So speaking of vegetables, fiber is very important for our digestion, but also for the excretion of excess hormones, really in aiding the waste process, right? Our regularity. And if we are not pooping on a regular basis, then hormones are literally in our waste. Like the hormones that are broken down, they end up in our stool. So if we don't pass them, it can actually be reabsorbed into your body. So we need to make sure that we're eating lots of vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and legumes. I think that I've talked to all of you about my favorite poop bread by now. The Dave's Killer Bread or the Aldi's dupe, I eat on the daily because it keeps me so regular. But whole grains are really an important option. I think that a lot of us get afraid to incorporate because it's often tied to bread. But if we have a really high quality bread that is helping our digestion and helping keep our system strong and clean, then it's definitely more beneficial than just mixing all bread in general. Can't get that out. Cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, and kale. they have this nutrient called indole-3 carbinol, and it actually helps balance your estrogen levels. Very similarly to phytoestrogens, which are also in foods like flaxseed, soy, and tofu. And again, with the tofu, just be careful. There are a lot of tofu products that are very hyper processed. So everything in moderation, it's always a good rule of thumb. But just be aware of that. So we need to stay hydrated. Again, this is nothing new, but at least half your body weight in ounces of water a day. This is where all of your chemical reactions are happening, right? All of our hormones are water soluble. So if we're dehydrated, then we are not having hormone synthesis or the breakdown of hormones. And then if you don't have enough reasons to get off the sugar kick, we need to make sure that we at least try to be moderate with our high sugar and refined carb intake. And this is specifically because it has an impact on our insulin resistance. So, oh, you know what I just realized in this screen? If you guys are making comments, I can't see it. So if you want to unmute yourself to ask questions or make a comment, totally feel free. I won't be offended for you interrupting me, but I can't see the chat. But high sugar and refined carbs is linked directly to our insulin resistance. So when we are eating lots of refined carbs, right, like the white bread, the granola bars, the cereal, the kind of foods that are made in a factory and broken down for us so that our body doesn't have to, our body has to release a whole ton of insulin to break it down. So our body gets exhausted from releasing all that insulin constantly. So then we don't have a high enough sensitivity to it to actually break down the food efficiently. So we need to make sure that we have whole grains, again, for our fiber and for our nutrients. And the best thing you can do is try to replace really sugary drinks, especially, and snacks with other alternatives, right? We try not necessarily to get rid of anything in this program, right? We're not saying that it's a bad food and we can never have it. But when we think about our baseline, right, our 80% versus our 20%, 80% of it has to be fuel, 20% of it can be fun. So when we think about the foods that we grab regularly, right, like a snack that we have most days, then we need to make sure that it's got these nutrients like whole grains. And if we are grabbing something that's a little bit more sugary, we need to find a better alternative to incorporate for all of our days so that we don't have to worry about that balance of your 80-20 getting offset. But I am a huge fan of flavored drinks, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like Mio or ice drinks. I think people typically think of those when they think of flavored beverages. I know I do. But you can also gravitate towards kombucha or the little poppies I know are popular with some of you guys, and I buy those too. Aldi's just came out with I think a root beer soda that I posted the other day. And it literally tastes like soda, it's carbonated, but it has all natural ingredients and not a lot of sugar, and it has fermented the kombucha in it. So you're getting health benefits while you're also getting the satisfaction of the sweetness. And then when we do have those carbs, just make sure that we wrap them in protein and healthy fats so that your body can regulate how it's broken down, so that it's not going straight to your bloodstream. So for example, if you're just dying for gummy worms, it's not that we're not going to have gummy worms ever, but a better option would be to have gummy worms and maybe a piece of dark chocolate or some almonds or something that has fats and protein so that it doesn't go straight to your bloodstream and your body doesn't have to pump out a crazy amount of insulin to break it down. Okay, and we need to avoid trans fats and processed foods. We kind of know this by now, right? It leads to inflammation and hormone disruption. So we want to opt for unprocessed food as much as possible. And I put a little note here for seed oils. I talk about it sometimes, and it's quite a popular buzz topic right now. Seed oils are considered to be canola oil, vegetable oil, or hydrogenated oils. And these are really, really cheap oils that companies will use to make a lot of baked goods or shelf stable goods because they can last forever because they're hyper processed. And they cause a lot of inflammation in the body. So it's not great for us, but it's really cheap for them. So they can make a higher profit off of the foods that they make, and it will also last longer. So they don't have to throw out as much food. So you want to be aware of this when you're looking at the different bars or whatever you're buying at the grocery store, because it's okay to buy some like processed foods or partially processed foods, right? Even applesauce is considered a processed food because it's ground down and cooked. So we just need to be aware of what ingredients we're looking for, especially when we are shopping in the processed food aisle, so that we can avoid at least the ingredients that are causing the most damage to our body. And then incorporating antioxidants. This is easy for people who love fruit. I like to keep berries in the fridge. Grapes is part of this. Leafy greens, of course. Nuts and seeds. They're antioxidants, so they help reduce the oxidative stress, the free radicals. They stick to and get rid of the free radicals that end up in our body from oxidative stress. And really all of these foods, all of these steps, all of the things that we're incorporating or trying to avoid or replace really ultimately plays into our gut health, because your gut microbiome is crucial for your hormone regulation. So this is where actually a lot of your hormones are made and also broken down. So if our if our microbiome is out of whack, then it can't produce the hormones that we need, and it can't break down to keep the balance nice and healthy. So all of these foods included, in addition to fermented foods like yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, kombucha. And then of course, you can consider using a probiotic supplement. We want to make sure that we're getting the food portion right before we start adding supplementation. It's just like protein powder or an iron supplement. If we're not getting enough from our food, then we can supplement with a pill or a powder, but it's never going to be as well absorbed. It's not going to be as well utilized by your body as if you were getting it from your diet. So first course of action is always going to be make sure the diet's incorporating all these beautiful things, and then also add fermented foods to help grow and manage your microbiome. But then we can add a probiotic supplement if necessary. I don't think, trying to think, I don't think anybody is currently on a probiotic supplement, but a good sign to, or maybe an indicator that you could use if you're unsure or maybe thought about bringing it up in one of our check-ins, is if you're not having regular bowel movements. That is like our number one indicator for our health, for our digestive health and for our gut health. So if you're not having regular bowels, or if you're having irregular bowel movements, even if they're happening daily and they're not like the right texture consistency, then maybe it's time that we can talk about doing a probiotic supplement. By the way, I'm never scared to talk about poop, so please bring it up in your check-ins if something is awry. All right, and then balanced meals. Make sure that we include protein, healthy fats, and complex carbs. This helps manage our blood sugar levels, our insulin sensitivity, and above all else, our satiation. What's the word I'm looking for? Satisfaction. I think I'm on the right track. Satiety, I think is the word. Because if we can't manage our intake, then we are always going to be feeling like we're fighting against ourselves. So if you're not feeling satisfied from your meal because it's only carbs, then of course we're going to continue to have cravings and continue to be hungry and kind of start that vicious cycle of overeating but being underfed. So balanced meals are always important. We're in this program, so you kind of get the gist of this. And then our regular eating schedule. I'm a big stickler of 3 meals a day. We need to make sure that your body is stable and expecting food on a regular basis. The more regular we can time our meals, the easier our body can anticipate when it needs to have digestive activity. So having breakfast at the same time every morning, roughly, lunch the same time, but dinner the same time. And then, of course, using snacks as our appetizer because we don't want to be snacking all day long. Our body won't get the memo that it's hungry or full. We just end up in this gray space all the time. So make sure to get your 3 meals in every single day. So I put a little sample day of eating here. Breakfast, a smoothie that's balanced with that's got fat and protein and carbs. Mid-morning snack because you're probably starving and need to get to lunch. And then a salad and carrots and hummus, baked salmon with quinoa and steamed broccoli, so yummy, piece of dark chocolate or handful of berries for dessert. So all of these dietary habits, in addition to regular exercise, of course, stress management, this is a big one. Make sure we're managing that cortisol level. And then getting enough sleep. They all really play hand in hand in your hormonal health, but not only your hormonal health, like your health in general. So as I kind of hinted on earlier in this call, and as you're probably realizing right now, this is basically the guidelines to sustainably lose weight. And it's the best way to balance your hormones because managing your weight is the best way to manage your hormones. So if you have a higher body fat, it significantly changes your hormone profile, and it changes how your body balances its own hormones. So the main ones are your insulin resistance, your estrogen levels, your leptin resistance, which is like your hunger hormone that is produced by your fat cells, and then your cortisol levels, your testosterone and androgens, your thyroid hormones, a lot of hard words tonight, growth hormone, and then sex hormone building globulin. So all of these hormones start to get skewed because of excess fat on the body. And a lot of them end up elevated, and your body has no way to break down that elevation at the same rate that it's being produced. All because a lot of these hormones are either manufactured in the body fat or the production of it is being heightened because of excess body fat. So we end up with this sort of offset system that can't balance itself. And it sort of creates like this vicious cycle where your body has chronically high levels of cortisol, for example, and we're not getting the signals that we're safe or that we're full or that we have energy and it throws off our energy balance. And we end up running ourselves into a hole because we feel like crap. And we treat it with, extra food to make us feel better or extra rest to make us feel better. So it sort of starts to play this switch game where our brain thinks that we need to be a little bit more cautious with ourselves. But what we really need is to turn up the heat and manage our body composition so that it can start to heal itself. Okay, so these hormonal imbalances can lead to metabolic syndrome, infertility issues, mood disorders, sleep apnea, but ultimately, above all else, all of these contribute to inflammation, right? Inefficient bodily activities, and body composition that is higher for females than 28%, that starts to give us chronic inflammation in the body. And that's when we start experiencing symptoms that are either from chronic diseases or genetic diseases. And at the end of the day, the symptoms that we're feeling is what determines what label we give these diseases. So our lifestyle factors can actually make a huge impact on how, for one, those genes are being expressed, but two, what symptoms come to the surface. So it is really crucial that we do eat for balanced hormones. But at the end of the day, the point I'm trying to make is the most important thing you can do for your hormones is manage your body composition, because that is what drives the production, the breakdown, the inflammation that your body holds, and really all of your bodily functions. All right, I know that was kind of a lot and a lot of big words that were hard for me to get through tonight. Does anybody have any questions, concerns, relatability moments, comments that you dropped in the sidebar that I didn't see?
I have a question.
Let's hear it.
So when you were talking about the wrapping, like the carbs and like a protein or a fat, does it matter what order you eat them in? Because I've heard some like theories behind that. Like if I eat the right thing first, it helps my blood sugar.
That's a really good question. So I think that it can make a difference. If you're going to be that specific, then you want to break your fast with either a protein or a fat, and then have your carbs last so that it can be digested technically in that order. But the thing is, when it comes to those kinds of specifics, a lot of the time we get lost in the specifics and then it feels either overwhelming or just ridiculous. So then we drop the whole concept altogether, right? So if we can strive for better and not perfect, then we're much more likely to adhere to it long term. So like if you can do the protein and the fat before the carbs, amazing. That would be ideal. But if it just so happens that you're, I don't know, in a circumstance where you have the gummy bears first, it doesn't mean that having a protein and a fat 30 minutes later is not going to help you. Does that make sense?
It does. And I like that answer because I feel like when you hear things like that, like you said, it's like an all or nothing thing. So it's like, well, if I can't do it right, then I guess I'm just not going to do it. But if it doesn't matter that much, then it makes me feel better.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so minute. Like I want to say It's similar to, I got a question the other day. Should I track the 3/4 of a glass of champagne in my Fitness Pal? And I was like, well, you haven't really you haven't really been tracking that much. So, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, if that's what you put in there, it's not going to be an accurate reflection of like anything else that you've eaten in general. So why don't we just start tracking the food and then we'll worry about the drinks. So it's like we're reaching for better. It doesn't have to be perfect. And that's enough. Any other questions? No? All right, guys. Well, I so appreciate you sharing some time with me on here tonight. I hope that this was informative. But if anything, I I think I do want to mention too, like there's just so much buzz going on social media about balancing your hormones and all these different things. I don't know, like systems that you could do, or the things that you should be taking, or the supplements that will help you the most. It's very easy to attach yourself to a solution if it feels like it's going to solve all your problems. That is just like one pill. But the reality is it's it's always going to come back to your life habits and your daily routine, your daily eating routine, really your baseline. That's what's going to drive you to have healthy hormones. So don't get stuck in that like rat race of looking for, I feel like my hormones are off balance and maybe that's why I can't lose weight. They are hand in hand, but really the best way to solve balancing your hormones is by taking a sustainable approach to manage your weight. All right, that is really what I wanted to leave you with. I hope that you all have a great rest of your evening. It is Monday, so we've got a whole week ahead of us. Lots of opportunities to be super successful and just be 1% better each day. I know that I have an exciting calendar ahead of me. I'm excited for this week and the change that I get to make in this world. So I hope that you guys have some excitement and fire in your bellies to get after it. And I'll plan on seeing all of your great check-ins come in this week, so don't forget to submit them. And I will see you all on the next call.
Thanks,
Thank
Sarah.
you, Sarah.
No problem, guys. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.